Okay, everybody, we're going to get started. My name is Ted Adams. I'm an implementation specialist here at RedTeam. I am also joined by Eileen. She's another implementation specialist here at RedTeam. We both specifically work with RedTeam Go. The reason for this webinar, or the focus of this webinar, is to go through the new owner contract. And I say new for those of you who may not already be RedTeam Go customers, or maybe you're new to us. I'll go through a little background as to how the old is different than the new. Eileen, is my slideshow shown? Am I sharing my
Yes.
screen?
Yep, we
All
can
right,
see your
thank you.
screen.
All right, all right. So, like I said, we're going to be talking about the new owner contracts, and just to give a little context or a little background. Up until this new module was released, the process before was that we were more than happy to program a custom owner contract for you, but there was a little bit of a process to it. You would have to make sure that the document is in a Word document, send it to me or Eileen, whoever your implementation specialist may have been. And then we would have to create a ticket internally, send it to our programmer. So there was a little bit of a process, which typically goes pretty fast, but we've streamlined the entire process, and we've honestly put a lot more control in your hands. And I think if you've been with us for any length of time and you've used the previous version or the previous process, I think you're going to like the new module a lot better. And I'm sorry, before I jump into the weeds here, if you have any questions or any input, Eileen is taking care of the chat and Q&A options within the Zoom call. So if you have any questions or any input, feel free to use either the chat or the Q&A, and Eileen will be fielding those for us, and we'll do our best to get an answer for you. All right, so like I said, the new process, the new module puts a lot more control in your hands. You are now able to create your own custom owner contracts, which is fantastic. So that kind of cuts out the middleman. So you don't have to, put the document in a certain format, send it to me and all to our programmers and all that. Depending on their workload, maybe wait a few days. So that, like I said, that's really streamlines the entire process for you. And also one thing that I haven't touched on yet is historically, as part of your deal with RedTeam, is you were allotted up to 2 contract documents that we would program for you for free to make available in your site. The new module removes that limitation. So now you can create as many versions of the owner contract as you want or need. And we're going to walk through that whole process, but just to help you understand how much better this new owner contract module is. So let's jump into the weeds here and take a look at what I'm talking about. So the way I'm going to present this today is there's kind of 2 sides to the coin. The first part that we're going to look at is setting up your defaults in administration. So this is where we're going to create the owner contract documents that will be available to use. And then we're going to jump to the other side of the coin, and we're going to look at actually writing an owner contract for a particular project. Excuse me. In administration, we're going to have kind of a foundation document, a boilerplate version of an owner contract that's available for you to customize, so you don't have to build the entire contract from scratch. You can customize all kinds of things, whether it's formatting or the arrangement of the different sections in the contract, or even just the language within the document itself. Also, if you have a third-party license such as IA or AIA or Consensus Docs, anything along those lines, you'll be able to use those as well. And one thing I want to point out is I'm making this distinction between the administration side and the project level side, The only people that will have access to work with the customizations in administration are the people on your team who are designated as administrators in the system. So if somebody is a project manager or a site superintendent, an accountant, anything along those lines, if they are not also an an administrator in your system, they won't be able to go in here and make any changes to the documents that are available to use. To navigate to the new owner contract module in administration, we're going to start up at the top right of your dashboard. My screen says system account. That's my training login. But if you're logging in with your username and password, it'll have your name up there. So we're going to click on our name at the top right. That's going to open up the menu. We're going to click on administration. And then when we move into administration, over on the left side, we're going to have a menu that says default settings. We're going to click on that to open that menu and click on owner contracts. So when we click into owner contracts in administration, we're going to see a list, and you'll see in the screenshot that I have here below where it says owner contracts at the top is a list of all the contracts that we have available in my test environment. Yours may look a little bit different, but at the very least, where it says custom contracts and below that it says owner contract, at the very least you're going to have that when you first get in here. You will have the option to add additional ones. Like I said, you can create as many as you want. There's no limitation on that. But if you also have a third-party license, like an AIA license, you'll see those kind of separated into the section below that. And just for your convenience, it's also got the expiration date listed there for your AIA license. So you can kind of be mindful of that. And again, you'll have the AIA documents down below that. And again, if you have another third-party license, such as consensus docs, those would show up down below that as well. Also, if you have any previously created custom owner contracts, so before this module was released, if we had previously created a custom owner contract for you, those are also going to be available for you in the system here. All right, so one minor detail I want to point out is between the left side menu and the actual owner contracts, we have a pane, we have a kind of a separator there with a little arrow up the top. We can click on the arrow to close or to collapse that left side menu. And that's just going to give us a little bit more real estate to work with while we're working in owner contracts. So in the owner contract module itself, we have a few different things that I want to point out and draw attention to. Each of them are highlighted with the red boxes. So the owner contract, that's going to be the default version of an owner contract that's available for you in your system, whether you have a third-party license for, again, AIA or consensus docs or not. Every system is going to have the default version of an owner contract that, again, you can go in and modify. Over to the right, we've got the ellipsis icon, the 3 dots. That's going to give us a few other options. We'll dig into that a little bit more. And again, in this screenshot, we see that we have various AIA documents if you have that license. Excuse me. I mentioned that we have the ellipsis icon next to each one. If I click on those or click on it, we'll have a short drop-down menu where we can edit, duplicate, print, set to inactive, or delete. So what I did kind of behind the scenes is I created a second owner contract and simply named it owner contract number 2. I want to show you that I want to underscore again the fact that we're in administration, and here we are generating, customizing the contracts that will be available to our project managers to use at the project specific level. So when I click on the ellipsis icon, the 3 dots next to the new contract that I created, the owner contract number 2, I'm going to set that to inactive just to show you kind of what that does. And then when we flip over to the project side, I'll show you how that comes into play. So I went ahead and moved it to inactive. So now you'll see that owner contract number 2 is still there. It's still in our list. It's just grayed out. So the 3 dots, the ellipsis icon, is still available to us. So we can go in and we'll have the same options. We can edit, we can duplicate, we can delete, or in this case, we can move it back to active. So we can kind of toggle back and forth between active and inactive. But again, this is just on the administration side of things. When we click into one of the contracts, so I kind of cut it off a little bit, but in that screenshot over on the left side, you'll see that one of those options has kind of a pink background. That's because I clicked on it. And when I click on one of the contract documents from the left side menu, it's going to open up on the right side of the window here. And again, we're going to dig into that a little bit more in just a minute. At the top of the left side menu, I have the option to add new. If I click on add new, it's just going to create a new document for me based on the boilerplate, on the default contract that's in the system. And then up at the top, if you're already a RedTeam customer, my guess is that you're used to seeing that tour button up at the top right. It's in several of the modules that we have in RedTeam, but just know that it's here as well as an additional resource. So if you get in here and you're bumping around and you get stuck, that's one of the resources that's available for you to help get unstuck. And then default values, again, up at the top right, that's where we can set the retainage. And edit is the bulk of what we're going to do for the next few minutes. All right, so when I click on edit, what that's going to do is it's going to open up a new window for us. And this is what it's going to look like. This is similar to what we just saw. But like I said, this is opening a new window for us. And what we see is over on the left side, we got a handful of tiles, the 8 different tiles over there that will let us kind of input different features or functionalities within the body of the contract. And I'll show you what one of those looks like in just a minute. Into the body of the contract itself, up at the top left, we've got those arrows and the pen and paper icon. The crossed arrows will let us drag this section anywhere we want it in the document. So if we want to drag this all the way to the end or anywhere in between, we can use those crossed arrows and drop it wherever we want or need it to be. Whereas the up and down arrows will effectively jump the section up or down by one spot. So if I click on the down arrow right now, it's just going to move it down one section. And then the pen and paper icon will let us edit this section in particular. Over on the top right of the body of the contract, we've got the garbage can. That's not going to get rid of the entire document. It's going to get rid of that section, which clearly you don't have to do that. But if there's a section that you just don't need, that's how you can get rid of that. And then up at the very top right, it's not active right now, but we have a save button. As soon as we start making any changes at all to the document, that button will then be live. So we can make changes and then save them so we don't lose our work. Print is just what you think it is. That will allow us to print this. Reset to default. So as we go in here and make changes, let's say we've changed this and that, and you change 30 different things, and we just don't like the way it's looking. It's just a mess right now. We have the option to reset the default. That will reset the default for the entire document. When we click in to edit a specific section, we'll also have the option to reset the default for just that section. And I'll show you that in just a minute. And then cancel just gets you out of this edit mode. I mentioned the tiles over on the left-hand side. We've got 8 of them over there. So for example, if we wanted a page break, so what that is if we wanted, for example, to have every article in the contract on its own page, we could drag that tile, the page break tile, in between each article, And that would effectively move each article to its own page. And then the other ones are pretty straightforward. If you want to drag the addenda in there or the drawings or signatures or anything along those lines, you just drag and drop. You pull it into the body of the contract where you want those to live. And it automates those things for you. You've also got the option to add a blank section in there. We already went through this a little bit, but the arrows will let you move the sections around to where you want or need them to be. And we're going to look at editing the section in just a minute. We've already talked about that. We talked about getting rid of a section. Now we're going to edit just the section. Again, I want to be clear that this is not editing the entire document. It's just this one section. So when we do that, it's going to open up the section again in its own window. And now on the left side, we have a long list of automations that you have available to you to drag into the document. And I mentioned the word automation a couple of times. I want to point out that in the body of the document, in the body of the contract itself, we have a bunch of fields that we see right out of the gate that have the light blue background. Those are automated fields. So what that's going to do is it's going to pull all that information from the project. So by the time we're writing an owner contract, we've already established the address for the project and the owner and just all of those pieces of information that we need to set up a project. The system for these automated fields is going to go grab that information for you, so you don't have to manually enter them or copy and paste them in here or anything like that. The system is going to do that heavy lifting for you. And like I said, over on the left side, there is a long list, whether it's, the architect address or the owner's first name or, anything along those lines. And pretty much anything that you would need would be in that left side menu. And again, you can drag that into the body of the contract wherever you need it to be. In the body of the contract, across the top, we have all the standard formatting tools. So if you want to make something bold or underlined or resized or different font or anything along those lines, you have all those available. And I mentioned this before for the entire contract, but since we're in the edit section window right now, if we've gone in and we've edited and modified and removed and all this, and we've made just a mess of it, and we just need to start all over again, we can click on that reset default button up at the top right. Excuse me. Once we're done editing, modifying, customizing this section in particular, we can either save or cancel. If we cancel, none of those edits are saved. That's all I've got on the administration side of the coin. Before I move forward, I want to pause for just a minute to see if anybody has any questions.
It looks like we are good right now, Ted.
Thank you, ma'am. All right, so now we're going to look at the project specific. This is where we're going to actually write the contract, the owner contract for an actual project. So the first thing we need to make sure is that the status of the project from the project dashboard. And again, if you're not already a RedTeam client and you're not familiar with the layout yet, up at the top right of a project dashboard will show the status of the project. I highlighted this one here to show that this particular project is in the pending status. If that's the case, the owner contract module will not be available to us yet. So the status before this is the bidding status. If this project was still in bidding, we would not be able to work with the owner contract yet. We would have to move it forward into pending, which again, this screenshot shows that we're in the appropriate status to be able to work with the owner contract. If that's the case, we'll see over on the left side menu, we have commitments. And then if we unroll that menu, we have owner contracts. Within the commitments menu, you'll see that everything else is grayed out right now. Again, that's because we're in the pending status. Once we move forward to in progress, we'll have access to the other options. So because the owner contracts are the only option available to us, that's one that we're going to select right now.
And Ted, when you do get
Yeah.
a moment, we do have a question. I don't know if
Okay.
you saw that. How can you configure the owner contract to reflect a time and material pricing structure, whereas there is no predetermined contract price?
Thank you very much for the question. Let me get through this, the next couple slides here, and then I'll talk about that. All right, so when we open the owner contract module, this is going to look familiar in terms of the layout to what we saw in administration, where we have the list of the contracts over on the left-hand side. But it looks a little bit different because now we have the different features across the top, the different functions across the top, where we're going to enter the start date, the end date, agreement date, all of those pieces of information that we typically include in the owner contract. We have retainage here as well. We can make any changes to that here at the project level that we need to. We also have the ability to add any alternates, units, or phases. If we have any, let's say, alternates, let's say there's a flooring alternate and it's going to be an extra, $5,000 or whatever. If the owner wants to move forward with that flooring alternate, we can select that from the alternates by clicking on that button and selecting that flooring alternate if we had created it. And when we do that, it pulls that value into the contract. And up at the very top where it says $689 right now, that $5,000 would pull into and update the value of the owner contract. We have the option to import. So there's a couple of different options within import. We're going to talk about that in just a minute. And now we're going to get into actually writing the owner contract. So I'm going to randomly pick one of them from my list. And I want to point out that here at the project level, not in administration, we don't even see a reference to owner contract number 2 that I created because I made it inactive. So that's what I was kind of talking about in administration, where you have control over the documents that can be accessed to write for a project. This is pulling in the information. I pulled this in from our training environment. This is a test project that we have in our system. Just to show you that it's going to pull the information in, whether it's the owner information, the project address, all that information that we have set up with those automated fields. This is where it's going to pull all that information from your project and pull it into the owner's contract itself. Excuse me. From within here, we have a few different options up at the top right. We can edit, sign, or print. You'll notice that the sign button has a drop down. There's a couple of different ways to go with that. I'll show you that in just a minute. So the import button, we have two options. We can import a contract or we can import and manage attachments. If we import a contract, so let's say the owner is going to provide the contract for this project. We still need to go into our system and create an owner contract on our end, more or less just as a placeholder in the system. And then if we have the signed owner contract, maybe in a PDF, we can import that. At that point, anything that you import is going to override any RedTeam generated contract. And then the import manage attachments. If we click on that, we're going to get this new window that opens up, and we're either going to drag and drop into this window, or we can click to go find the file that we're looking for. When I do that, I've got the option to either include these attachments as embedded or linked attachments. I'll talk about those in just a minute. So I went ahead and grabbed just a dummy document to use, the valve specs. You'll see that when I dragged it in here, it now shows over on the left side, it shows the name of the file. And then up at the top right, it names the attachment for me. But that is editable. So I can go up to where it says valve specs up at the top right, and I can change that to say whatever I need it to say. And then the next drop down there where it says embedded attachment, I put the arrow over that. But that's actually a drop down where we can choose between embedded or linked. I opted to use the embedded attachment. But I very well could have also selected the linked attachment. So when I make that choice, I can then upload the attachment. And now you'll see down below in the embedded attachment section, there's the attachment that I just uploaded. And what that does is in the body of the contract, you'll have what's typically the last page of the contract, which is the signatures. If we have the embedded attachments, they'll show as an additional page after the signature page. So that's where you would show, or that's where you would see the attachment. In this case, the valve specs, whatever else it may be that you've attached. If I had chosen to use the linked attachments, it provides it in a similar way. Instead, after the signature page, it would have an additional page with just a list of links. Those are hyperlinks that the owner can click on to go view and review those attachments. So you have that flexibility as to whether you want to provide the attachments as links or as actual PDF attachments in the contract itself. Again, I got ahead of myself, but that just explains what we just talked through. And now we have the option, again, I put the arrow over the drop down, but where it says sign, if we click on that, we have the two options to sign and send or to request a signature. Basically, you can sign it and then send it or not sign it and request that the owner signs it first. It's up to you. You can do it either way. So now I chose to sign and send. You'll see that this window pops up to let me know that I haven't provided all the information that I really need to. When I was filling this out, that the dates across the top, I intentionally did not provide an agreement date just so we could show you what happens. It's kind of a check and balance that's in place to make sure that your ducks are in a row before you're sending this off to the owner. So you'll see that the agreement date does not have a green check mark. And up at the top right, the only option it's giving us is to return and complete that missing information. It does not give us the option to move forward. So I'm going to go ahead and fix that. I got out of this and provided the agreement date. Now we have all green check marks. Everybody's happy. Now I can click on the proceed to sign. Now it will let us move forward because we've provided all the information we need. Excuse me. When I proceed to sign, we're going to get this window that pops up. It's going to be a PDF version of the contract that you can scroll through and take a look at. If we're happy with that, if we feel like we're ready to send this off, we can then either electronically sign with that blue button at the bottom, or if we need to back out and go change something, we can click on close. If I choose to move forward and electronically sign it, it gives you a disclaimer at the bottom there. And then you have to provide your name and title. This is kind of deliberate to make sure you don't accidentally get click happy and accidentally send it before you're ready. So this kind of slows you down to make sure you're taking a deliberate action. And you can provide your name and title down there. As soon as you provide information to those two fields, will then the agree and sign button will then become active. You can digitally sign the document. When you do so, you'll get these two things that happen at the bottom. The longer screenshot there just shows that it's confirming that the system did what you asked it to do. It signed it and sent it out. And then at the bottom right, instead of the sign button, we now have the option. First of all, it shows that the document was signed. But then we also have the option to download the signed version of the contract, or we can just close the window altogether. When we do that, once it's signed and sent out, if we go back out to the contract dashboard, I guess we would call it, we'll see that over on the left side, we now do not have option, or we do not have access to all the editing features that we previously had over on the right. This has been signed and it's been sent out. We can't go back in and edit it now after it's been signed and sent. Over at the top right, we've got the send button. And again, you can send the contract. So maybe you sent it out, but the owner calls you up and says, I know you sent it, I can't find it anywhere, would you mind sending it again? That would be the option, or that would be a use for the send contract button. Or if you haven't got the signature, you can use that request signature button. That's all I've got for you. I want to say thank you to everybody for making time in your day. I know you're all very busy. I hope this has brought some value for you. And if any questions pop into your head after the fact, feel free to reach out to us and let us know, and we'll do our best to get the answer for you as quickly as we can.